appreciate it if you would stop Rob Taylor from blathering on and on.
Opinions expressed by the talk show hosts, callers, or guests on the Rob Taylor Report do not necessarily represent the opinions of the hosting platform, subsidiaries, sponsors, or possibly anyone else on the planet or the known universe. From the tinfoil and lead-lined broadcast bunker on the beautiful south coast of Oregon, it's the Rob Taylor Report. So strap yourself in. Your political therapy session is about to begin. Ladies and gentlemen, here he is, the nearly famous Rob Taylor.
Hey, Goose County. Hello, Oregon. Good evening, America. East Coast, South Coast. I said that last time. East Coast, West Coast. For some reason, I think there's a South Coast. Is America an island? I don't think so, Rob. So straighten it up. I'm just ranting by myself this morning. I mean, this evening, and I've got nothing to lose. I've got nothing to prove. I'm just ranting by myself. And normally I have guests on here, and sometimes it's better just not to have guests because the guests get in the way of some of the subjects that you want to cover. And so tonight, that's what I thought I would do. I would go ahead and do this solo because there's a lot to talk about, and something that just happened recently that was just absolutely infuriating to me is there was another church in France burnt down. Now, this just wasn't an ordinary church. This church goes back to the late 1800s. And it was just heartbreaking to see another church go up in France. And, I've never been to France. I don't plan on going to France. But I'll tell you what, this was just absolutely disgusting to see that some nut out there would think it would be a good idea to go and burn a church. And I would feel the same way if this was a synagogue, whether this was a mosque, whether this was a Buddhist temple. I don't care. I don't give a damn. Anyone out there who wants to destroy someone else's religion is a seriously sick person, okay? And there's a lot of seriously sick people out there, because most of the wars throughout history have been fought over religion. And it's just sad that another church has unfortunately, let's say, bit the dust. And I don't think the whole place was entirely destroyed. I think it was just the bell towers.
Home improvement pros count on building Ferguson.
And, let me turn that off. Getting a commercial play back here. All right, killed that. All right, and so it's sick that there are individuals out there who think it would be okay to go out and destroy a church. This church going back to 1859. It was restored and reopened in 2018, and like I said, I don't plan on going into France and seeing this church. So really, what loss is it to me? But I do think it's a loss to mankind because being that it was built in 1859, it gave or featured a lot of neo-Gothic furnishings. There was a lot of history lost with this, and I don't think we should lose our history. And France, it isn't like France was settled by colonists. No, French have been there a long damn time. And so the guy who was suspected of doing this, and I have to use the word suspected because he hasn't been tried, he's also suspected of burning down other churches. And I really got to think that there's something deep inside a person that's really disturbed, something mentally screwed up in your head where you would want to go out and destroy a church. And I don't know what it means to you, but my family was steeped in religion, and I'm not religious by any stretch of the imaginations, but I grew up steeped in religion myself. And it brought so much comfort to a lot of the elderly in my family when they were able to go to church and pray and and basically communicate with their Lord and communicate with other people and pray and sing and dance. This all happens at churches. This is where a good portion of society comes together, and I think it's sad. I think it's a great loss. And I was just infuriated this past weekend when I saw that church go up. And I think the guy who did it, if he's found guilty, I think they should hang him from the highest arm yard they can find. And before all of you out there who criticize me on a regular basis go, but Rob, that's not the Christianly thing to do. Okay, I'm not a Christian. So if Christians want to forgive this guy, you go right ahead. If God wants to be in the business of forgiveness, which if he exists, he's in the business of forgiveness, let him forgive this dirtbag. Me, and I think for the sake of justice, I think this guy should be strung up from the highest yardarm and hung there until the birds have eaten away his carcass. And like I said, I would feel the same way if it was a mosque or a Buddhist temple or in any other religious building. I think this is just sick when people do this. It's sad. This church in France, it survived both world wars, and I think that's commendable in itself, but it didn't survive the crazies in the 21st century. No, the crazies in the 21st century, well, they're holding up pretty damn strong. I've got to give out a high fives. I know I'm supposed to be ranting, but I'm going to give out a high fives anyway, because the county commissioners, they turned down $50,000 in Zuckerbucks. And this stemmed from a work session from the Tuesday before last. Tuesday before last, the commissioners had a work session with all the department heads, and I got word that I should show up because the county clerk, who's an elected position, submitted a grant to an organization called the Center for Tech and Civic Life. And she decided to send this grant out, and she was accepted. And this Center for Tech and Civic Life said, okay, we'll give you the money. Probably unwittingly to her, she probably didn't know the history of this group. And we're going to go into that in a minute. But luckily for us, the taxpayers of Coos County, our commissioners did know who the Center for Tech and Civic Life, what type of nonprofit group they were, and where they got their funding, because this is the group that was funded by Mark Zuckerberg. In fact, have you ever heard the term Zuckerbucks? Yep. This is the place where they get the term Zuckerbucks, because this is the organization, Center for Tech. Let me see if I can get that on stage here. Yes, the Center for Tech and Civic Life. And I'm getting this information off of a website called Influence Watch. That's, once again, influencewatch.org. They're a great group. If you want to look up nonprofit or non-government organizations, this is the place to go, because they're really good at exposing a lot of these leftist non-government organizations for who they really are. And you want to know who they really are, because this group is backed by a bunch of leftists. It sounds so pleasant, doesn't it? Center for Tech and Civic Life, helping America since the early 1800s. Yeah, Center for Tech and Civic Life. It's not so benign as they sound. And you should realize that once you realize that it is a Chicago, Illinois-based center-left election reform advocacy group formed in, of all times, 2012. Remember what happened in 2012? Oh, I remember what happened. We got a new president, our first black president. Well, that's if you're not counting not Jimmy Carter, but Bill Clinton as our first black president. No, you might think that I'm talking about Bill Clinton, but I'm not. If I was talking about cigars and something, maybe that would be Bill Clinton's area. But what I'm talking about is Barack Hussein Obama. And at the time, remember when he became president, he was talking about he was an organizer, and he was an organizer. That's how he won the presidency. He had a hell of a grassroots organization backed up by billionaires and these types of non-governmental organizations. Well, this Chicago, Illinois-based group, the Center for Tech and Civic Life, the organization pushes for left to center And this is far left of center voting policy and election administration. It has a wide reach into local elections offices across the nation and is funded by mainly left of center funding organizations such as the Skoll Foundation, the Democracy Fund, and the John S. and James L. Knight Foundation, the New Venture Fund, the Hopewell Fund, and of course, you couldn't forget the Rockwell Brothers Fund. If there's Rockwell's funding it, you know you need to question it. And this Center for Tech and Civic Life, what they're pushing really is to try to interfere with our elections. There are several lawsuits that have been levied against the center, and they are in court right now. I'm not sure if any of those are criminal cases, but I do know there are several civil litigations that are going on against this center. And its founder was Tiana Epps Johnson, Donnie Bridges, and Whitney May. The founders of the Center for Tech and Civic Life were co-workers at the New Organizing Institute for several years before the organization dissolved in 2015. NOI, described by the Washington Post reporter as the Democratic Party's Hogwarts for digital wizardry. Yep, that's the group that helped funded a lot of the social media platforms that are working right now. Not so much as really funded them, but learned how to manipulate those social media platforms, especially Twitter before it was X, and especially Facebook. I imagine this is how they came to know Mark Zuckerberg, and this is one of those things that a lot of people don't know about, and they hear about this stuff and they think, what a great idea. What a great idea that we have this organization that is helping local communities, local counties, local cities fund their election agencies. And it's not. I really think that if we're going to have elections, it should be funded by the people who are doing the voting and the people who are affected by that voting. And that would be all of us citizens, namely the taxpayer. The taxpayer should be funding all of our, elections agencies. That's just the way it should be working in my world, at least. In my world, maybe not so much the leftist world, because they think that these NGOs are just, they're the cat's meow when it comes to funding public and agencies. Because once again, why would they want to fund public agencies? Well, there's a good reason they want to fund public agencies. They want to have the ability to manipulate and control the policies inside those agencies, and a lot of those policies are affecting the way we vote. I mean, it comes down to the way we vote as far as voting by mail or doing in-person voting, all those type of things. Well, that's what this organization is working to change, and always remember, like I said, I'm an activist, and the reason I'm an activist is because I've been working to change policy. That's what I'm active for, because if you don't change policy, you really haven't done shit. And so this left of center organization, far left of center organization, is funding a lot of these election agencies inside the county and the state so that they could affect the policies that are dictating how our elections are run, all the way down to how the ballot is processed. And we should be really worried about this. This is something we need to keep an eye on. But additionally, a few members of CTCL's board of directors have strong ties to Democratic political organizations, notably Tammy Patrick, a senior advisor to the elections program at Pierre Omidyar's Democracy Fund, Omidyar's, I may have pronounced that, and Christina Sinclair, who was previously employed by NOI, as well as the Progressive Data Service Catalyst. In the months leading up to the November 2020 election, Mark Zuckerberg and his wife Priscilla Chan reportedly donated a total of $350 million to CTCL through the Silicon Valley Community Foundation, another non-governmental organization. And although the actual figure reported in SVCF's IRS disclosures were roughly $33 $328 million. The couple has also donated $69.5 million to a related organization, the Center for Election Innovation and Research, which channeled the funds to secretaries of the state as COVID-19 relief grants. Now, that's just weird in itself, and I don't know anything about this Center for Election Innovation and Research. What kind of innovation are they looking for? How to re-register more dead people as Democrats? I don't know, but I think we should look into it. But more importantly, if any of these non-governmental organizations that I just mentioned decide to come to your county or your city and to give money to your county clerk or your city's election officer, you might want to go down to the city council or to the county commission and tell them, to go get stuffed. We don't want their money. We're not going to whore ourselves out. And that's exactly what the Democrats wanted us to do, the local vocal leftists of Coos County. They showed up for this meeting last Tuesday. Like I said, the meeting the Tuesday before last was a work session, and last Tuesday was the actual regular session, because I convinced the commissioners, you need to take this to a regular meeting where more people can speak out on whether we want Coos County taking these Zuckerbucks. I mean, this is much like a prostitute pimp relationship. It's the same thing. A pimp doesn't automatically start beating a girl and throwing her out on the streets. No, there's a subtle dance to this. And the subtle dance starts with when a pimp meets a young person, they will offer them money. They will give them compliments. They'll tell them how wonderful they are. They'll try to disassociate them from their relatives and their friends, and they will try to alienate them and get them to a point where the young person is dependent on the pimp. And then the pimp all of a sudden turns another shade, turns a really dark shade, and starts to, do what pimps do, beat young people and put them on the street and sell them for money. And this is what they wanted to do in Coos County. This group, this Center for Tech and what is it here? The Center for Tech and Civic Life, they wanted to basically prostitute us because they're the big ass pimps, the non-governmental organization who comes out to counties like ours because they know we are strapped for cash. Why are we strapped for cash? Because the government is spending our tax dollars in ways in which we don't want them to spend those tax dollars. And therefore, we don't have any money. And the state has created an atmosphere, an environment for the counties and the cities where we don't have any money. The feds have done the same thing. Look at all the natural resources that we have here in Coos County. We should be the richest county just by accident, but we're not. Why? Because the state and the feds want to keep us broke. And one of the reasons they want to keep us broke is because they want us to be at the mercy of these types of pimps. These pimps, the Center for Tech and Civic Life. Doesn't that sound like a beautiful name? The Center for Tech and Civic Life, like it's a beautiful thing where we're all involved with civics in our local community, because that's what they'll say. They'll always say community, because it's like we're all a commune, man, a bunch of collectivists, and that's furthest from the truth. And that was proven this past Tuesday when our county commissioners, Bob Main and Rod Taylor, not so much John Sweet, because John Sweet, he was ready to pimp our ass out like nobody's business. John Sweet, I gave him kudos when he voted to put that wind turbine advisory question on the ballot. But now, this last meeting, I have to say, John, what are you thinking taking money from Mark Zuckerberg? I mean, do you really think that if we're going to whore ourselves out, we're going to whore ourselves out for just 50 grand? No, if I'm going to whore myself out, I can be bought, but it's not going to be cheap. It's going to cost you a hell of a lot more than 50 grand. And that's basically what John thought of our election integrity. And that's exactly what our county clerk thought of our election integrity. She wanted this organization, like I said, that's involved with litigation, with suspicious interference with our elections. This is going on. This is something all you have to do. Go and look up the name, the Center for Tech and Civic Life. Once again, that's the Center for Tech and Civic Life. You just go do your own research and tell me if you would want to take money from this group. So I have to give high fives because Bob Main and Rod Taylor, our commissioner, said, hell no, we're not going to do it. And they did it under a lot of pressure. There was about 40 of our local vocal leftists who showed up for the Coos County meeting, and they pulled out some of the big guns. They had Arnie Roblin was there. Yes, that's former Senator Arnie Roblin. They had Ginger Swan there. Ginger Swan is the former health director of Coos County, and wonderful lady, did great for Coos County when she worked for the county. And of course, they had Katie Iman there. I mean, it wouldn't be a meeting if you don't have Katie Iman there. And if you don't know who Katie Iman is, she's a lawyer. She's a local environmentalist lawyer, and she ran for county commissioner against Bob Main 4 years ago. And her husband is Bill Bradbury. Bill Bradbury is the former Secretary of State of Oregon, and he's a Saint Bradbury for a lot of people in Bandon, because Bill Bradbury used to live here in Bandon. Katie still does. And so they were all there, and they were telling us that we need to pimp our ass out, and we need to take this money from this organization that we know is already under suspicion for being very corrupt. Now, when I got up to speak, I said, one of the comments that I made, I said that if this was Trump money, if this was the Republican Party or Trump funding a non-governmental organization, and that non-governmental organization that's funded by Trump decided to give $50,000 to our county clerk for election integrity issues, I would guarantee you that most of the people who were there at the county commissioners meeting, all those crazy leftists, they would have been completely opposed to it. In fact, it would have been inversed if the situation had changed and it was a Donald Trump group, or a Donald Trump or a Republican funded group that was giving us that, or wanted to give us that $50,000 grant. And I can guarantee you those same Democrats would have shown up for that meeting to say, oh no, we can't take money from Trump. And so that was just one of my comments I made. There was about, I would say, 10 of us to about 30 on the other side. They really get organized. Our county clerk, she's really good at this. She's got a lot of friends high up in the Democrat Party. Don't underestimate Julie Brecky. And like I said, I don't dislike Julie Brecky. I don't even know Julie Brecky. I really don't know the woman. I don't know whether she's good, bad, or otherwise. She's just someone who's now the county clerk. And I've known former county clerks, Terry Turry. She was my favorite county clerk. She was county clerk probably about 10, 12 years ago. And she ran a really tight election. I don't think Terry Turry at any point in time would have taken money from this organization. In fact, Terry Turry broke off from helping out at the League of Women Voters because they became too far leftist in their group and their organization. Terry Turry, I don't even know what she was registered. I don't really care. I just know that working with her, I knew she was an honest person and she ran a fair election. Keller, the one who replaced her, can't remember her name, Keller. It doesn't matter. Keller's her last name. And she was the one who replaced Terry Turry here in Coos County. And she was the one who, well, under her watch, there was no backup for the 2020 election. And she ended up resigning because by law, they're supposed to have a backup for all the ballot images that come out of any election. And she didn't have that. And so she resigned all of a sudden, very mysteriously, didn't have much to say about that. And so that's when we got Dee Dee Murphy, who was appointed by then two candidates for commission who were on the Board of Commissioners. That's Melissa Cribbins and John Sweet. They appointed Dee Dee Murphy to county clerk, which I don't know if they would have appointed the Republican chair, if they would have appointed Rod Schilling as the county clerk, I would have some problems with that as well. I don't know why you would, of a county of 65,000 people, why would you appoint a party leader or a party chair to the county clerk? I mean, it just seems like if you can't see The problems with that, I don't know. It's just inappropriate on all kinds of levels, and especially since John Sweet and Melissa Cribbins were up for election in 2020. So it was just a bad thing all in all together. And so when we heard about Julie Brecky going and taking money, the current county clerk taking money from this organization, many of us showed up to that meeting and we shouted it down. We were pretty verbal about it. I mean, there were some times when the vocal local leftists were interrupting the commissioners. Rod Taylor had to basically threaten the crowd, tell them he was going to start ejecting people if they didn't get control of themselves. And they would yell and they would talk out of turn. And of course, we would start yelling at them. And it just turned at some points into a shouting match, which wasn't really good. But sometimes that happens in democracy. And when it's something this passionate, I think it's kind of important. But here was something that happened to me personally. I've known Katie Eyman for a long time. And Katie, we've had a lot of conversations. I've had her on my radio show. I've had private conversations with her, and I like Katie. I just think she's a little, how shall we put that? One enchilada short of a combination plate. Maybe that would be it. I don't know. Nutty as a fruitcake sometimes. No, I don't think she's as nutty as a fruitcake. I think she's more like an eccentric cat lady. I don't know if she owns any cats, but that's where I wouldn't call her completely nuts. She couldn't be nuts considering she's a lawyer. But she's a little bit odd. She's a different character. And she asked me to step outside. And while we were outside, she lectured me on what I was doing. Why was I doing this? And I told her, I said, look, I don't think the government should be taking money from this organization, the Center for Tech and Civic Life. I don't think that's appropriate. And I even made the comment again that if it was Trump, she probably wouldn't want the money. And Katie said, yeah, I would take the money from Trump. And I was thinking to myself, well, I'd like to test that, Katie. I would like to actually see if you would really take the money if it was coming from Trump. I'm just betting that they would probably not take the money. And not only would they not take the money, they would show up to the meeting to tell the commissioners to not take the grant money, especially if it was from Trump. But we were standing out there and talking, and she says, well, why don't you just run to office if you want to have control over these things? And I said, why would I do that when I have just as much authority right now? And she goes, well, you don't have any authority. And I go, what are you talking about? I don't have any authority. As an individual, I have a great deal of authority. And she says, no, you only have authority if you're an elected official. And at that point in time, I realized this is what the leftist mind thinks. They think that only people who are part of the government have any real authority. And I'll tell you right now, that's a bunch of bullshit. I have put initiatives on the ballot that have actually changed law and changed policy for several different counties, dozens of counties. I have done it for cities. I have filed referendums to stop laws from taking place. I'll give you an example. Here in Bandon, they had an idea to create the Dark Skies Initiative, where you could only have a 60-watt light bulb on your house, which was absolutely ludicrous. I mean, Bandon, Oregon is one of the darkest freaking places I ever lived. I mean, today it was gray and muggy at noon, okay? And so I don't get these leftists who don't think you have authority unless you're in a position of government. That's not true. As an individual, you have a great deal of authority. Not only do you have a great deal of authority, you have the responsibility, the duty to practice that authority, to go out and use that authority to help change your society for the better. And that's what we've lost in this country. And that's why leftists, they pray and they bow to government, government. That's their God. If you're a leftist, their God is government. And that's why they get on their knees and pray to government and think that only government officials and government representatives are the only ones who have authority. That's a bunch of bullshit there, Katie. And then she grabbed my shirt and she goes, Rob, I wish you would think. That's when I got pissed off. This is what the left does all the time. If they don't like your opinion, they will say something like, I wish you would think next time. I wish you would have put a little thought into it. And of course, once Katie Hyman told me this, I said, Katie, that's fucking insulting. And excuse my language, but it was needed to be said. It's insulting that you would tell me that I need to think. Just because we come to two different conclusions doesn't mean I didn't put some thought in on this issue. I thought about it long and hard. In fact, at one point I was considering maybe we should take the money. Since then, I have changed my mind. But it just ticks me off that this lady would grab my shirt and say, I need to think, as if I'm just a big blob of meat who can't come up to a consensus unless I put my finger in the air and see which way the Republican wind is blowing. That's not my style. I've never done it. I have never been anyone who hasn't done anything that isn't of my own mind, my own thought, my own endeavor. And it just ticked me off. It really ticked me off. And I yelled at her. And I could see she just got mad too and walked off. And good thing she walked off, because I don't like people grabbing my shirt. If she was a man, I would have popped her in the mouth. Okay. So just, letting people know, we do treat women and men differently. Why? Because they are different. And of course I wasn't going to hit a woman, but it just ticked me off that she had the nerve to grab my shirt and tell me I should think, literally calling me a flippin' moron. Okay, Katie? That was insulting. And so she walked off. I went back into the meeting, and I congratulated the commissioners during public comment for making that decision and not whoring out the county for the $50,000. Now, I hope you all remember that when it comes up for election, because we got two candidates, count them, two, running for commissioner. We've got the old guard, he's a non-affiliated voter. He used to be a Republican, Bob Main, who's sitting on the commission now. And you've got the ultra-liberal Drew Farmer, who used to be on the Coos Bay City Council. He's resigned since then. I don't know why he's resigned. I would like to talk to Drew. Maybe I'll get him on the show and we'll ask him. But here's the difference between the two. Drew Farmer thought we should take that $50,000 grant money. And Bob Main was the first commissioner to be completely adamant about not taking the money. So there's two contrasts between the two people who are running for Coos County Commissioner. We've got Bob Main, who's the old guard, and I've had problems with Bob, but I'll tell you right now, I'm fully endorsing Bob, and I'm fully supporting Bob as the commissioner, or who's the intended commissioner, because he's up for election. I'm voting for him. And I wouldn't vote for Drew Farmer for many reasons, but here's another reason. He wanted to take the Zuckerbucks. So I hope you all remember that if you're in Coos County, that Drew Farmer likes the Zuckerbucks. He has no problem whoring himself out. Bob Main has a little bit of integrity and turned down the Zuckerbucks. So that's just a different contrast between these two. And, I think it's good to point out these things from time to time because it's very important with the election, and not a lot of people know what's going on. And if you listen to Drew Farmer, you would think he was a great conservative. Well, this young man sounds like a really great conservative. Well, you ask him why he would take the Zuckerbucks. Why would he sell out the community, the city, the county, for $50,000 as Zuckerbucks? And come to find out that once you take this money, they start getting more and more involved with your elections, or at least that's the pattern of this group. So hallelujah to the Coos County Commissioners. Thank you very much for not taking the Zuckerbucks, and shame on all you leftists for wanting to whore yourself out. But that's what leftists do. That's what socialism is all about. Socialism is literally society whoring itself out because when you're collectivists, you live off of each other. Whereas if you're a free market individualist, you try to live off your own means, off your own work, your own labor, your own creations and what you produce. That's what's important. But in collectivism, no, it's a pyramid scheme, and you got to try to live off your neighbor as much as you can so that they don't live off of you. I mean, in socialism, the golden rule is do unto others before they do it onto you, whereas a free market individualist society, it's the golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And that's the difference. And so I hope it's very clear when Coos County voters, when you go to the ballot box, the difference between these two people. There was some big news that just came out about RFK, and I was never a supporter of RFK, but I do think the guy, there is some validity to some of the things that he has talked about, and one of those things is the vaccines that he's been talking about for a long, long time. That there are reasons that we should be worried that some of the things that they're putting into our water, some of the things that they're putting into our food, the plastics and chemicals that they're using are doing bad things to mankind. And I don't mean that in a sexist way. I just mean that in a literal way. Mankind, meaning all humans. And so there was an interesting story that just came out today. It was just breaking today. And I got this from the Washington Times. And let's see here. RFK Jr. scores wins in North Carolina and Michigan in bid to get off the ballots. This is important to him, and it could be important to us who are supporting Donald Trump, is that what RFK is saying, that that most of his voters, 57% of them, are going to vote for Donald Trump. And I don't know if that's true. I really don't know if that's true. I would have assumed that if RFK would have stayed in the race, he would have pulled more votes from Kamala Harris, at the time Biden. He would have pulled more votes from those folks than the votes he's going to pull from Donald Trump. But today, he scored a huge victory, and he's no longer in the ballot in North Carolina or Michigan. And RFK thinks that that's going to be a good thing for Donald Trump, which it might be. I don't know. And I defy any political analyst out there to come up with the best prediction on that, because if you could predict the public, you would be a gazillionaire. Okay. I mean, it's a lot of people who score big and who've created merchandise or services that make them ultra wealthy. There's no, you can't always predict what the public's going to want. I mean, look at the Etzel. They thought that was going to be a great thing, but who knew? And so it was great that this just happened today. I'm glad to see it. I'm glad to see that RFK is not going to be on the ballot. I think it might help out Donald Trump. I don't know. But he scored a pair of legal victories Friday, and that was today, in the battle states of North Carolina and Michigan, and a setback in Wisconsin in his quest to get his name off the ballots in some states after he suspended his campaign and endorsed former President Donald Trump, which by the way, that in itself is pretty damn historical. You've got a Kennedy endorsing the Republican candidate. I mean, who knew? Who knew that was ever going to happen? I mean, this last 10 years, so many things I never thought I would see have come to fruition. It's just absolutely bizarre, the world we live in today. It's bizarro land, but that's the way we have it. We have a Kennedy who's now endorsing a Republican, and one of the most reviled Republicans on the left. So good for Kennedy. Good for him. That's a good thing. And hopefully, maybe it'll benefit Donald Trump. I don't know about you, but that's who I'm supporting. And then there was good news for Donald Trump. Donald Trump today, he was able to get a nice little bit of a victory here, because the judge delays Trump's sentencing in hush money case until after November election. Of course, this is something that's been hanging over his head for a while, and Judge Juan Merchan's decision Fridays grants Trump a hard-won reprieve as he navigates the aftermath of his criminal conviction and the home stretch of his presidential campaign. And that's a really wonderful thing. This is a good thing that this puts us after the November election. And if he wins the election, I don't know what the hell they're going to do. I mean, he can pardon himself. I'm not sure what you can do in a case where Trump is president and he's facing sentencing. That would be in itself, once again, I bring back the bizarro land. It's just completely, absolutely one extreme to the other. And here we are again, where we're watching lawfare being taken place against our presidential candidate. And you know what really ticks me off? Nobody's still talking about the coup that just took place against a sitting U.S. president. We just had a president turned into nothing more than a figurehead. He's barely even a figurehead. And, they've even gotten him an office outside the Oval Office now to do his press conferences. They got him a little desk with a little flag. It's really cute. And that's what we're stuck with now. And nobody seems to give a damn that we just suffered a coup. We just went through a coup in this country, and everyone's, nothing to see here. We'll just keep going. I don't know. This really bothers me the most of all the news stories that's happened in the last couple of months. We just went through a flipping coup and nobody seems to care. I don't know. It just bothers the hell out of me. I don't care whether it's Biden or Harris who's going up as the presidential candidate for the Democrats. I could give a crap less. But I do care when somebody or a group of somebodies are powerful enough to completely unseat a sitting president. That's literally what they have done. He's really nothing more than a paper tiger, a showroom doll. That's all he is. And he's a mannequin and he's a figurehead. There's nothing really more that he can do or say. It's really sad. The only thing he can do now is pardon his son when they really go through and start sentencing his son. That's going to be a beautiful thing because he's going to have to pardon his son if he doesn't want good old Hunter going to jail. And I'm sure Hunter will have lots of fun in jail. Plenty of sex, plenty of drugs in jail. Probably not the kind of sex and drugs that he's used to, but yes, there are sex and drugs in jail. So I'm sure that's what Hunter's future is going to be if the president, his dad, doesn't give him a pardon. But I don't know. These are just the things. What can I tell you? It's just going from one bad scene to another bad scene, and this is just really sad what's taking place in this country. And then there was another news story that came out, and I had posted this on my website because I normally post FBI alerts, especially ones that are related to Oregon, ones that are related to national politics. And they just came out. It was 2 days ago on September 4th. It was on Wednesday. And they just came out with an FBI report that they had just made a few arrests. And I'm going to read you the headline for this story because it's just unbelievable. This headline. I think you guys. Let me see if I can get this up here. Yeah, this is the Justice Department disrupts covert Russian government-sponsored foreign malign influence operation targeting audiences in the United States and elsewhere. Yes. And just the name or the title of the press release was enough to signal to me that this is nothing more than a psyops. This is nothing more than a setup. And what they're talking about is the arrest that they just made. And I think there's huge reasons why they're making this that's really more to what's going on than the actual crimes that these people are alleged of making. But let me read this to you. Influence operation relied on influencers, AI-generated content, paid social media advertisements, and social media accounts to drive internet traffic to cyber squat it and other domains. And I read that and I thought, yeah, so is the Democrat and Republican Party. What's exactly the difference between them and this group here? And I'll tell you what the difference is that the FBI believes that this organization, it's the RT news source, that's a Russian news source. In fact, if you go to my website, robtaylorreport.com, you will see that I have them on my news link, my news page, where you can check out stories. And many times they had better coverage, much better coverage than American media. And so that's why I kept that on my website, because I thought they had some really good stories, actually stories that were being repeated in many other mainstream media news sources that were usually right-leaning. I mean, Fox News is an example, Real America Voice, Newsmax, all of them were reporting some of the same stories that was being reported on RT. And once again, RT, I forget exactly what that stands for. Maybe I can get it off the report here. But it was just one of those things where as soon as I read it, I knew this is psyops. This is nothing but a psyops. And I'll tell you why. But let me read a little bit from this here. It says the Justice Department today announced an ongoing seizure of 32 internet domains used in Russian government directed foreign malign influence campaigns, colloquially referred to as doppelganger, in violation of U.S. money laundering and criminal trademark laws. As alleged in the unsealed affidavit, the Russian company's social design agency Struktura National Technology and ANO Dialogue, operating under the direction and control of the Russian presidential administration, and in particular, First Deputy Chief and staff of the Presidential Executive Office, use these domains, among others, to covertly spread Russian government propaganda with the aim of reducing international support for Ukraine, bolstering pro-Russian policies and interest, and influencing voters in the U.S. and foreign elections, including the U.S. 2024 election. Yeah, no shit. Who isn't? Who isn't doing that today? You've got the Democrats who are doing that. You've got the Republicans doing that. You've got every other country in the planet trying to influence our elections. And I got news for you, America. We've done more in the world for influencing elections. In fact, we have orchestrated coups in other countries. We don't just practice coups on our own president. No, we've had coups in other countries. And so America is constantly trying to influence other elections from other countries all the time. All the time. Anytime there's an election happening, I can guarantee you there's an American influencer in that country trying to sway the election in the favor of our government. I guarantee you this has happened, and it's been happening since the beginning of governments ever existing, because that's what governments do. They try to influence each other. So I was reading this, and I kept reading it, and I was still having a little bit of a hard time trying to figure out what the hell crime are they committing? Really? What is this agency doing? Or this group doing that is really any different than what anyone else is doing in the country? I mean, Mark Zuckerberg, I just gave you the story of the Zuckerbucks going to Coos County. Here we have, on a micro level, a group that Center for Tech and Civic Life, whatever, blah, 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 that Zuckerberg group that's funded by Zuckerberg is influencing local elections and tried to influence us here in Coos County. So why aren't they going after that organization? But yet here we got a presidential announcement because, oh, that's right, they're Russians. You know, I thought we weren't supposed to be racist anymore. And here it sounds like we're kind of racist against Russians, or at least the left is. And which is weird, because Russia is still communist. I don't care what anyone says. They're a bunch of commie bastards, and well, just get used to it. So I'm not sure why the FBI really pushed so hard, other than the fact that it's a psyops. And here's what the psyops is. What they're saying on RT and everything that they're going to find that was being promoted by this organization is now going to be disinformation. It's going to be malinformation, misinformation, disinformation, a lie by any other name. And the truth is that some of the things that are being reported on RT isn't a lie. It's actually real. And so that's why they're doing it, because they want to be able to say, once again, that anything that's reported on the right wing media, including this show, they'll call me a right winger. They will say that anything that's reported on Fox News, on Real America Voice, or Newsmax, that all of that is disinformation, malinformation, and blah 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 blah. You know how it goes. And they want to do this because they want to interfere in the elections, because they want to create a boogeyman. Of course, this is Putin. Putin is behind all of these evil, nefarious things that are going on in America. No, it's not. It's not American leftists who are causing all the disruption in America. No, it's Putin. Yeah, him. He's an amazing man, an incredible man. He can ride without a shirt, bareback on a horse, and what can I say? The guy's badass. He can ride that horse bareback into New York and take over the entire city. The guy is he's a maniacal person, and that's what the left wants to make him out to be, because what he's saying, or what this organization is saying, well, it's misinformation, it's malinformation, it's disinformation, and don't believe your lying eyes. And so when it's repeated on the right-wing mainstream media, or I like to call it lamestream media, anytime it's reported in these organizations, the left is going to say, well, that's disinformation. And once again, they need to create that boogeyman because they want to scare the base of their voters and get them ignited into the election, get them engaged, and get them to the ballot box so that they can win some of these votes. I don't know if it's going to work for them. I really think that they're kind of beating a dead horse with this kind of crap, and I think they're victimizing and using lawfare against people who, I can guarantee you, RT, they are Russian propaganda. I can guarantee you that. But what media source is not propaganda? Really, you just I don't know. Show me a media source, and I guarantee you there's a form of propaganda. And so once again, they want to short circuit our objectivity so that we don't see the truth. We see the narrative that they're trying to draw in our mind. And of course, this is something that we've been putting up with for a long time now, and it really came out hard in 2020 and during COVID. And one of the things that I thought was interesting that kind of correlates with this story is, think of all the things that has happened probably in the last 10 years, maybe even a little longer, that the left was saying was a conspiracy theory, that media was saying was a conspiracy theory. And of course, I get redundant because media is the left. And they've been telling us for a long time that what we're really seeing is not true, and it's just a conspiracy theory. It happens all the time. And it's still happening. It's happening with what they just, and I'll show you this meme here. This is still happening where they're telling us that what you're seeing is not true, and what you're hearing is not true. So therefore, you got to believe what we tell you. Well, let's just go over a few things that journalists or media or the leftists have said was a conspiracy. Hunter's laptop. Yep, remember Hunter's laptop? That was Russian disinformation, just like this RT arrest that just happened. It was Russian disinformation. Nope, that was real. Hunter's laptop was real. Oh, I know, the mRNA vaccine was not harmful. No, it was harmful. There's been people who've been seriously harmed by the mRNA vax. The COVID vax. We've still have seen a lot of people go through a lot of mysterious medical problems that didn't exist before they started getting these COVID vaccines. So that one, once again, it's not a conspiracy theory. How about the pandemic? Yes, remember the pandemic, COVID, the pandemic that they had been planning several years before COVID even hit the shores of America? Once again, that conspiracy. Yes, the lockdown. And this is the one that pissed me off about Donald Trump. Donald Trump went with this, we need a 2-week lockdown. It turned into a 2-year imprisonment. And he never should have done that. I think he conducted himself really badly during the whole COVID pandemic. I think he fell for the leftist, tomfoolery, and I think he was fooled himself. So once again, the pandemic, the lockdown, completely BS. The ivermectin is not efficient. There is no efficacy with ivermectin. Well, we found out that's a lie. That's a complete lie. Let's see, the hydroxychloroquine efficacy. Well, we found out that was a lie. A hydroxychloroquine, I can tell you right now, if it wasn't for hydroxychloroquine, I'm not sure if I'd still be here, because that's exactly how my doctor treated me when I got COVID. I mean, I was just this far from going to the hospital, and if it wasn't for the antibiotics and the hydroxychloroquine that he gave me, I don't know if we would or I would still be here. It's something that, I prefer to be here than not. Face mask. This is something that I've been saying for a long time. They said, oh no, face masks, you got to wear them. You got to wear 2. Maybe you got to wear 3 or 4 face masks until your face is so covered up you can't breathe and you die of asphyxiation. Yeah, no, face masks were useless. That was a complete conspiracy. How about the censorship on social media? Remember when they were telling us, oh, don't worry, that's nothing. That's those algorithms, that's just your part of your imagination. And then we find out, no, there is censorship. In fact, Mark Zuckerberg, going back to the group that I was just talking about, who tried to influence Coos County, well, Mark Zuckerberg was part of that social media censorship. Oh, yeah, intersectionalism. Once again, that intersectionalism that's happening there. The Epstein sex island. Yeah, remember the Epstein sex island? Doesn't exist. Nope, not real, not happening. Well, it was happening, and we still don't know the names of the list from the Epstein diary. We don't have any clue what's going on. How about elite pedophilia? Oh, yeah, there's a lot of wealthy people who took trips on the Epstein jet to Epstein Island. Oh, well, I was just talking about Bill Clinton. I wonder if he brought his cigars. But that was true too. There is elite pedophilia. There are very wealthy people who flew off to this island to have sex with young women. And who knows where else that's going on. I mean, we see that all the time. Where you have these very elite, very wealthy, ultra powerful people who, well, get caught with their pants down. Well, that was happening. That's not a conspiracy theory. This is the one I love. Biolabs in the Ukraine. Oh, gee, why is Russia bombing the Ukraine? Well, maybe it's all those biolabs that are right on the border of Ukraine and Russia. That they're worried about, because China has already sent us the China virus. So why wouldn't they think that America are because these were American labs or American funded labs in Ukraine? Why wouldn't the Russians think that maybe we're going to do the same to them? I don't know. But once again, they told us that was a conspiracy theory. Child trafficking. My God, I don't know how much evidence you need to see how much child trafficking that's happening from the southern border coming north. I mean, it's just, you look at the reports and there are missing children, hundreds and hundreds of missing children that we have no clue of where they've gone. And we know because there have been arrests, there have been people who have been found guilty of sex trafficking from kids from the border. And this, once again, we were told, nope, that's a conspiracy theory. Russiagate. Well, Russiagate's still going on. Now with the magazine, RT magazine, of course, that's still going on. Nope, that's not a conspiracy either. No, we were right. The leftists were wrong. The Steele dossier. Remember that? Remember the news media? Oh no, Hunter's laptop, the Steele dossier. Nope, those are as good as gold. Those things, the Hunter laptop doesn't exist, but the Steele dossier does exist. Good as gold. No, we found out that was a conspiracy too. Total conspiracy, the Steele dossier. I mean, really, do you look at Trump and think he's the type of guy who would allow prostitutes to urinate on him? I just don't see that happening. I don't know. He's a rich man. Maybe he's got a few kinks, but I don't think allowing women to urinate on him is one of those. And Ukraine corruption. Remember when they told us that? Yep, that Ukraine corruption. Yep, there's nothing to see here. There's nothing going on. So don't worry about that. So I thought, this once again goes to show that the left is trying to tell you that don't believe your lying eyes. Don't believe what you see or what you hear, because we know what's best for you and we're going to take care of you. And so that leads me to another conspiracy, and talking about, I would just mention objectivity. The reason they're doing this is they're trying to get us to question ourselves. They're trying to get us to question our own beliefs, our own thoughts, just like Katie Iman grabbing my shirt and telling me to think for myself. I think fine for myself. I'm not an automaton who follows the marching order of the leftist. And she gets upset about that. Oh no, you're an independent thinker. Well, you're a radical. We got to send you to a re-education camp. And so they want to destroy objectivity in the American psyche. And it's happening all over. In fact, if we lose our objectivity, we're going to be a more dangerous society, because your objectivity tells you that something is dangerous and something is not dangerous. And if you think that something is dangerous, but you've been told, well, don't think about that. If you see a group of young men, especially a group of young black gangbanger thugs on a street, you're not supposed to be racist. You're not supposed to be prejudiced. You're supposed to practice DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, and you're not supposed to cross the street when those gang of thugs come walking your direction. When they come walking your direction, they're telling you, take all of your objective thoughts, those thoughts that are trying to preserve your life, and just ignore them and say hello to these gangbanging thugs who might rob you and take everything you own. No, just go ahead and do that. No, if your mind is telling you to walk across the street because there's some thugs coming at you, you need to cross the street. When you get those hairs on the back of your neck standing up, listen to those hairs. There's an evolutionary quality to those hairs rising on the back of your neck when you're in imminent danger. And if we are trained to ignore that, if we are trained to repress those objective thoughts, bad things are going to happen. Really, really bad things are going to happen. And so I saw this interesting chart that made me think, if we lose our objectivity, we're really going to destroy society. And let me give you an example here. This is a chart. The rates of sexual offending. Now, this isn't from America. This is from His Majesty's Prison Service data. This is from Britain. This is from Wales and England, and it's for the king. And of course, they still call him His Majesty. That word alone is the reason that we left England, because we didn't want to call anyone His Majesty. Yeah, His Majesty can kiss my ass, my royal ass at that. But this was an interesting chart based on data that just came out of the prison service for Britain, and which is Wales and England. And I think Britain would cover several other countries, but I think the study came out of mostly Britain and Wales, but it gave an example of women incarcerated. And the first example at the top left says women incarcerated sex offenders, 103 out of 30.4 million women. And this is over a certain period of time. This isn't how many women who are actually locked away in prison right now. These are over a certain period of time. And it comes to find out that the rate of sexual offending out of the 30.4 million women is 103 out of that number, which would be 3 per million. So there are 3 per million sexual offenders for incarcerated women. Now you take that for men. Incarcerated sex offenders for men is 11,660 out of 29.5 men, which comes out to 395 per million. That's right, 395 per million sexual offenses caused or committed by men who have been incarcerated. Listen to this number. Men who identify as women, transgender men, gender pretenders, incarcerated sex offenders, 92 out of 48,000. If that number was concurrent to the millions of them, it would be 1,916 per million. That's 1,916 per million compared to 395 per million for just straight men or heterosexual men, or for 3 per million for women. Women aren't into sex offending. What can I tell you? I mean, they are the more loving, kinder sex. What can I tell you? And those guys who want to be women can't be women because it seems like they're causing a lot of problems in prison because they are committing sexual offenses at a high rate, 1,916 of them per million. Now, I was just talking about objectivity and why objectivity is very important, because if you're not objective, once again, things that you know are dangerous, you're going to put that aside because you're going to practice diversity, equity, inclusion. We include everyone. It's kind of like the philosophy that Hillary Clinton had. You know, it takes a village. It takes a village to raise a child. Au contraire, mon frere. No, do you want the commie villager raising your child? Do you want the fascist villager raising your child? Do you want the pedophile villager raising your child? How about the cannibal villager? You know, the problem is we have too many idiots and not enough villages. That's the problem, because there's a lot of village idiots out there and they think it takes a village to raise a child. I'll tell you what it takes to raise a child. You know what it takes to raise a child? A mom and a dad. That's right. It takes a mom and a dad. Sometimes you don't have both, and children suffer because they don't have both. But in a more perfect world, I wish every child had a mother and a father that they could look to for good examples, because if they had mothers and fathers who were good people. And that's what it takes to raise the children, not a village like Hillary Clinton says. But Hillary, she's an idiot. But what they're telling us is not to read that objectivity, to go ahead and accept every villager, even though your objective mind says, I don't know if I want that Ted Bundy character in the village raising my kid. I don't know, but they said I have to be DEI. And since I'm diverse, since I'm equitable, since I have to be inclusionary, I'm going to go ahead and let that Ted Bundy character, I'm going to let him watch my children, especially my teenage daughters. What could happen? I know. Let's just say, Jeffrey Dahmer. Hey, I know we need to send some of our young boys over to Jeffrey Dahmer because it's lunchtime. And my objective mind is saying, oh, no, we can't do that because the guy eats people. No, we got to practice diversity, equity, and inclusion. So we got to send our kid over to be raised by Jeffrey Dahmer. That's how Hillary Clinton's world would work. In my world, you don't let the other villagers raise your kid. You don't let the public school raise your kid. You know who raises your kid? You. And you better be a damn good parent to your kid, because your kid deserves it, no matter what kind of shitty childhood you might have had. But that's not what's happening today. In today's world, they're trying to tell us we have to accept everybody. And now they're telling us that we have to accept transgenderism as one of the normal activities in everyday life. Oh, everybody's transgender. Rob, you just don't understand. Everyone's transgender. Well, once again, you look at these rates of sexual offending and you got to think, my objective mind says, if transgender women who used to be men and now they're pretending to be women, are committing sexual offenses at a much, much higher rate than heterosexual men or heterosexual women, then my objective mind says I might not want to be around or have any of my family around these transgender women. Wouldn't that make sense to you? And once again, I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just telling you that this is what the data has put out there. But they wouldn't have you believe that. No, in your mind, you're supposed to believe and accept some of these people. Here's a lovely example of a transgender woman. I don't know if you recognize this. This is Divine from the movie Pink Flamingos. That was a John Waters movie made back in the 70s. I've never actually seen this movie. And, I I've seen previews for it, but I'll tell you what, I don't know if I would trust this character to watch my children. I mean, we're in a village, and it takes a village to raise a child, and this is one of the villagers. Are you going to send your village child over to this other villager here, this lovely divine person? I'm sure she's a nice person. I mean, there's nothing you could say bad about her. I don't know. Even Hollywood has a way of stereotyping these people. And this is how they stereotyped this divine creature.
Give us some of your political beliefs.
Kill everyone now. Condone first-degree murder. Advocate cannibalism. Eat shit. Filth are my politics.
Filth is her politics. That's right. Filth is her politics. Now, once again, the left, they want you to get rid of all objectivity. So you get rid of your objectivity and you replace that with diversity, equity, and inclusion. And they're telling you that you're in the village. The world's a village. Coos County is the village. And Divine here is you're one of your neighbors here in Coos County. Maybe she's a neighbor here next to me in Bandon. And the left wants you to believe that there's nothing wrong with this person. She's an absolutely normal person. But yet, this movie, The Pink Flamingo, was written by a guy named John Waters. And John Waters, he's a little bit freaky himself, but he's the one, he's a leftist. He's a Hollywood leftist. He's the one who created this character, Divine. Now, why would he create such a horrible character if he didn't think part of that stereotyping was just a little bit true? Maybe it was just a little bit true that someone who is suffering from body dysphoria might actually have some other mental issues. There might be some mental instability with this lovely lady Divine here. And I use the word lovely lady very, very liberally there. And so, this is Hollywood portraying this. And this movie this came out, I think it was in the early 70s. And later on in the, there's been many characters in the movies that they were transgender people, and they played the villain. In many parts, they played the villain. Now, this is another example. This is Gene Simmons. You remember Gene Simmons? Yeah, Gene Simmons. This is what he looked like when he was in his rock band Kiss. Okay, not much difference here. Okay, I granted, I was a Kiss fan. I love it. Going to party all night, play all day. Yep, I'm in. Kiss is cool. Loved Kiss when I was a kid. They looked really badass. They had the cool makeup, Gene Simmons, he had those big boots and his guitar was a giant axe. I mean, how cool can you get? I mean, for a 12-year-old, I grew out of it. That happens. Well, Gene Simmons actually played this character, Velvet Von Ragnar. And this is from the movie Never Too Young to Die. And once again, I ask you, do you think, if you're asked the question as the villager here in Bandon, Village Bandon, that this guy who might be your neighbor, so let's just say Velvet Von Ragnar is my neighbor here in Bandon. And as the villager, it takes a village, like Hillary says, it takes a village to raise your children. You think I should send my kids over to be watched by Velvet Von Ragnar? I don't know. I'm getting a little confused. That DEI is confusing me. No, the objectivity is coming in. Hell no, I wouldn't let this weirdo anywhere near my kids. And once again, this is a product of the leftist Hollywood elite. This is how they even saw transvestites in the mid-'80s. I think this movie was made somewhere in 84, 85, somewhere like that. I got another preview for this too.
It takes a man like me to be a woman like me.
Yeah!
Can you guess what I am? Do you believe what you see? Yeah! Well, is this a dream, or can I be for real? Well, if you doubt yourself, I can let you feel, yeah!
Revolting, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, well, it's possible he killed your father.
Yes, it's possible that Velvet Von Ragnar killed your father. Yes, he's only a woman, only a man like him can be a woman like him. Yes, wow. I don't know. I don't know what was happening in Gene Simmons' career that he had to take this role in this movie, Never Too Young to Die. I've seen this movie. I remember watching this when it first came out. I don't remember where I was, but it wasn't a very memorable movie. I do, though, that character, Velvet Von Ragnar, was totally memorable because we were all big Kiss fans. And of course, there's Gene Simmons, this big badass dragon, because that was his character in Kiss, is now playing this femme fatale. But actually in the movie, he was born with both male and female parts. So I don't know if he qualifies as a transgender or is just someone who has genetical defects. I don't know. But once again, this is Hollywood back in the 80s who still had partial objectivity and really saw that some people who suffer from body dysphoria might have other tendencies, violent tendencies, and they may act out with those violent tendencies because, well, they're, crazy as a bat. Okay. And so once again, you have this character in Hollywood, Velvet Von Ragnar, from the movies, from once again being filmed in Hollywood, who now, if they tried to make this movie and put this in the theaters, of course, everyone would yell, this is transphobia. You're showing this person in a bad light. Trans people could never do any violence. Well, I just showed you that chart. Apparently, trans people are doing a lot of violence. And Hollywood at some time recognized this. And I think most people recognize that some of these transgender people, well, they look crazy. And if they look crazy, your objective mind might say maybe they are a little crazy. I mean, look at this guy. If you saw this guy walking down the street, would you cross the other side? I don't know. I think I would. I think I would cross the street if I saw that weirdo coming my way. I don't know. Just my thoughts. I don't know. It's strange. But once again, I just showed you an example from the 1970s from the Pink Flamingo and the character Divine, created by John Waters. I just showed you now the character Velvet Von Ragnar. What a name, Velvet Von Ragnar, played by Gene Simmons. That was in the 70s. And then, not to escape anything, they also made a movie in the 90s where there was another transgender character, this Buffalo Bill. Remember him from The Silence of the Lambs? This dude was bad. This dude was really bad. I mean, he used to cut the skin off of women and, make little suits out of them. So, once again, Hollywood, still with its objectivity, still could look that people who have the mental instability to have body dysphoria might have other mental issues. And of course, they played it off quite well with this character. Who can forget this scene?
It rubs the lotion on its skin or else it gets the hose again.
Skin or it gets the hose again. Rub the lotion on your skin. Wasn't that a creepy movie? That was a damn creepy movie. And I know I'm making light of this, but my point is if we lose objectivity and we replace that objectivity with diversity, equity, and inclusion, we are going to be a much less safer society. And I'm going to give you an example now, and this will probably get me kicked off of YouTube eventually. But the recent I won't go into the shooter yet. Recently, we just had someone in our administration that was appointed to the administration that looks just like the three characters that I showed you. This is Samuel Otis Brinton, or Sam Brinton. He is an American nuclear engineer and an LGBTQ activist. This is from Wikipedia, so they use his proper pronouns, they, as if there's two of them standing there. They served as the Deputy Assistant Secretary of Spent Fuel and Waste Disposition in the Office of Nuclear Energy. Would you want this guy to be in charge of your spent fuel and waste? Nuclear waste. Really? Seriously? Well, this is who was in charge under the Biden administration. You don't think he's senile now? Look at this guy. I mean, let me just go back. Let me just show you. Yeah. I mean, seriously. Once again, if you saw this freak walking down the street, I guarantee you might cross the street, or for this guy, you might just laugh at him. Okay. You might just laugh at him. You might call him a few names because this guy is mentally unstable. And, they want to get rid of bullying in this country. I can tell you right now, bullying serves a purpose for people who deserve to be bullied. This guy's a freak. This guy's a criminal. He's been going around stealing luggage, and he just got convicted of it. And he doesn't have to do any prison time because, well, he's part of the oppressed class of people. He's a transgender, a gender pretender. And this is the guy who's in charge of our spent fuel and waste disposition. I don't know. This is our objectivity in the 21st century is completely gone. It's completely gone. Well, it is, at least in the Biden administration. And this guy's pretty bad. I think this guy's a sicko. I'll say it. I think he's a sicko. I think there's something wrong with him. And I think this guy could do something pretty devious. I don't know if it's true, but he just looks that way. My objective mind looks at him. There's no DEI. There's no diversity, equity, and inclusion. No, there's just objectivity. And if I'm looking at this guy and he's part of the village, as one of the villagers here, I'm not going to let my kid be babysat by this freak. Okay. I don't know. Maybe you would let your kids get babysat by this freak. Me, not so much, because I don't have any of that diversity, equity, and inclusion crap muddling up my objective mind. No, I try to stay objective and I try to accept people for who they are. And by the way, I'm not saying that all transgender people are violent or that they have any violent tendencies or they're going to do any harm to anyone. But I do say that if someone is suffering from body dysphoria, that they may be unstable in certain other mental areas. And we got to keep an eye out for them. But I'll tell you who's worse than this guy here. This creature here. This is Rachel Leland Levine. And why this person is much worse is because let's see, I'll just read this first. Rachel Leland Levine is an American pediatrician who has served as the United States Assistant Secretary for Health since March 26, 2021. She is also an admiral in the United States Public Health Service Commissioned Corps. And boy, that's an insult to all admirals out there. But this creature right here is much worse than any of the creatures I showed you. I mean, sure, that Buffalo Bill, yeah, okay, he killed people and he ate them. But I would say actually Rachel is worse, because Rachel is one of those people who wants to normalize pedophilia. She wants to normalize whatever, wants to normalize pedophilia. She wants people to treat transgender people and pedophilia people like they were normal. This is from the policies that this person has tried to create. And not only that, this Rachel Levine advocates the mutilation of children, your children, my child. She wants anyone who is suffering from body dysphoria, no matter how young they are, to have the power to go through the transition between one sex to another sex, when we know biologically that just can't happen. You can take off as many body parts as you want and sew other body parts on, but sewing a penis on a girl who thinks she's a boy doesn't make her a boy. I don't care how many penises You put on a girl that thinks she's a boy, it's not going to make her a boy. It's just going to make her a confused person. And so instead of allowing children to go through the process, the cycle of gender dysphoria, because according to most studies, most kids come out of gender dysphoria by the time they hit puberty. And if we allowed them to grow naturally, most of them would no longer suffer from gender dysphoria and might go on to lead happy, wonderful lives. But that's not good enough for this sick freak here. Rachel Levine, she wants to mutilate your children. She wants pedophilia to be normalized in this country. That is grown people sleeping with children. This woman, this man, this whatever the hell it is trying to destroy this country by destroying the basic fiber of sexuality, and not just the sexuality of just adults, but the sexuality of children. This is a war against humanity, and it's being waged by leftists like Rachel Levine. She is disgusting. And it's a shame that somehow it has become so normal in this country that we have someone like her in the current administration. I can guarantee you when Donald Trump becomes president, he's not going to have any problem hiring lesbians or hiring gays. And he may even hire a transgender person, but I'm sure he's not going to put them in the position where they can advocate for the mutilation of children. I can guarantee you that's not going to happen under the Trump administration, but that did happen, and it is happening under the Biden administration, and it would continue under the commie Kamala Harris administration. I can guarantee you. And you go, well, Rob, what's wrong with that? What's wrong with, buying into these people's mental illnesses? Well, it could lead to problem later on in society. Well, first off, you have things like this: Tampon Tim and Tampon Dave. This is a Democrat, Tampon Tim, and a Republican, Tampon Dave, who thought that instead of thinking with their objective mind and saying, well, boys don't menstruate, boys don't have periods, so why would we put tampons in the boys' bathroom? Well, for some reason, these two men, our state senator, David Brock Smith, and Tim Walz, they somehow came to the conclusion, because they don't think objectively, they think with their DEI mind, they thought it would be a great idea to put tampons in the boys' bathroom. Well, isn't that swell? What could happen there? I don't know. Really seriously confusing kids. But it's such a confusion for kids that we're getting some negative consequences of that. And that brings me to this guy right here. This is Colt Gray. I didn't know whether I wanted to show the picture, because this young man, as much as I want to feel sorry for him, I can't feel sorry for him because he just committed murder. But this is Colt Gray, 14. And his father, Colin Gray, had separate court hearings today, to face murder and other charges in the Georgia Appalachia High School shooting that killed 4 and wounded 9. Colt Gray is pictured in a Wednesday booking photo. That's his booking photo right there. Well, it comes through the back sources now that this guy, this Colt Gray, was more than likely transgender. We already know he was gay, and we already know he had mental issues. He was under the scope of the FBI. They had already had him on the radar. I don't know what the hell's the matter with the FBI. I mean, we almost had a presidential assassination due to the failures of the FBI, and now we have this, where they had a young man who was having problems, and he was having such bad problems that the FBI went to his house to speak to his father and speak to him. And of course, they didn't do nothing. And maybe they didn't have just cause, but they should have kept a better eye on him. And they should have definitely explained to his father what would happen if this young man was allowed to get his hands on guns, because that's what the father did. The father bought this young man I'm not sure what type of weapon it was. Boy, that slips my mind now. But he had bought him a gun. And of course, Colt Gray, who was bullied at school, who was going through body dysphoria, allegedly, showed up at school a couple of days ago and shot and killed 4 and wounded 9. Pretty sad event. And this is what happens sometimes when you don't allow your objective mind, reason, to be in charge of your brain. I mean, I don't know what the hell's the matter with this father. Objectively, you have to look at your son here and think, my son has some mental issues. I mean, the gay thing, okay, whatever. But when you start to find out this kid was actually practicing and transgenderism, once again, you have to question his mental stability. He already could possibly allegedly have body dysphoria. So the father should have known. This should have been something that any parent should know about their child. If they're starting to have these mental issues, you sure as hell don't get them a gun. That's the last thing you do. And so, because the absolute neglect by the father, and neglect is as far as not being able to be attuned to the mental issues that his son was having. And once again, maybe it's because his father was steeped in DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion. Okay, so my son wants to wear a dress and wants to cut off his wiener. There's no problem with that. Let's buy him a gun. I mean, and this is such a serious issue. There are 4 kids who are dead. There are 9 wounded kids. And that's because we are telling people not to think with their objective mind. This could be leading to serious issues with what's happening here. And it goes once again to show that transgender people may have a higher propensity for violence than heterosexual men or women. And if that's true, maybe we should start looking at parents and giving them advice on how to deal with children who are going through this mental breakdown. And I believe it is a mental breakdown. If you want to mutilate your body, you're having some serious mental issues. I mean, there are people out there who have body dysphoria who want to cut off their leg because they don't think their leg feels natural. This is true. There are people who want to cut off their arm or take out an eye. I don't know. Maybe they want to be pirates, but there are people out there who suffer different forms of body dysphoria. This young man was suffering gender body dysphoria, where he wanted to become a female, according to back sources. And once again, this is all allegedly, but I'm willing to bet that when we go further down the road to find out what this young man was all about, we're going to find out that he probably was trans. And we know that there is a high rate of shooters out there, school shooters, who are transgender. Another example of this is this lady here. This was a female to male transgender person. Her name is Audrey Hill. She killed 6 people at the Covenant Christian School in Nashville, Tennessee, in March of 2023. You all remember the case? And she wrote a manifesto, and they still haven't officially released the manifesto. Of course, we've got quite a few sources who have released the manifesto through back channels, and they're still looking for those people. They want to prosecute the people who've actually released the manifesto because the officials don't want to release it, because once again, it's going to destroy that leftist narrative that when it comes to transgenderism, we got to practice DEI. Once again, it takes a village to raise children. And that's not true. What did I tell you? What did I tell you it takes to raise children? It takes a mom and a dad. And that's because you don't want crazy Velvet von Ragnar, the villager Velvet von Ragnar, raising your kid. You don't want the villager Buffalo Bill to raise your kid. And you certainly wouldn't want this psycho here, Audrey Hale, to be raising your kid. Of course, that's not the case for Hillary Clinton. I guarantee you, Hillary Clinton, she wouldn't let her child be raised by Audrey Hill if she knew what Audrey Hale has done. No, she wouldn't want that, but she wants all the rest of us to accept diversity, equity, inclusion, to rip out common sense, to rip reason and objectivity out of our head, and replace it with diversity, equity, inclusion. And it just doesn't stop there. Here's another one. The STEM School Highlands Ranch shooting suspect, Devin Erickson, 18, at a Douglas County courthouse there. His Douglas County courthouse appearance on May 15, 2019 in Castle Rock. Kendrick Castillo died in the shooting a week before he was slated to graduate, and 8 others were injured. Once again, you have a mentally unstable person, claims he was bullied, claims he was picked on, and there is reason for that because he was mentally unstable. It was obvious that he's mentally unstable. Look at this young man. Use your objectivity. I mean, most kids who have this purple hair stuff on their head, the piercings, the tattoos, there might be a few of them, some of them who might be good people. But you start to look at some of these kids and you go, wow, if this kid wants to disfigure themselves so much that they would actually mutilate their own body, what would they do to you? What would these kids do to you? So it doesn't bring me any joy to talk about this. I know, I use humor to tell the story, but when it comes to talking about these shooters, I think we have to realize we got to prepare our kids to be objective thinkers. And if they think that something is wrong, they need to act upon it, not be diverse, equitable, and inclusive. Once again, Jeffrey Dahmer, you want to include him with the party? I don't. But there are many people out there who would say, oh, no, you're crazy. We got to let everyone in. We got to let everyone in at the table. And it takes a village to raise kids. It doesn't take a village. It takes a mom and a dad. I've already established that. So I'm not calling every transgender person out there a violent person. I don't think most of them are violent people. But I do think that a higher percentage of them are causing a lot more violence than kids who are not mentally unstable, kids who don't want to self-mutilate, kids who are not suffering from body dysphoria. And it's okay to use that objectivity to realize there's a difference. And we shouldn't encourage people to bully anyone who's different than they are, but we also shouldn't stop them from questioning their motives when they're doing certain things. And if you've got a transgender person who's all of a sudden buying body armor and ARs and a bunch of 5.56 rounds, then you might want to question that. At that point in time, inclusivity is out the door. Objectivity is going to save your life. And so that was my whole point with this whole thing. And like I said, eventually the YouTube officials will probably see this show. Maybe not, because I have very few viewers. But maybe the YouTube people will see this show and this episode and will say, oh, no, Rob, we can't have that. We can't have you destroying our narrative that just because someone's suffering from a mental instability that we shouldn't use our objectivity to figure out whether that person is dangerous or not. I wonder how many women out there who have, who, like I said, the hair on the back of their neck stood up, or they got a bad feeling about somebody, but they didn't go with that feeling and they were abducted, killed, raped, or worse. I wonder how many of them would have said, maybe we should be more objective, and my hair is standing up on the back of my neck, and I'm not going to go around that person. I'm not going to go walking into that dark parking lot. See, that's what society, the leftist society, wants to create. They want you to depend on government to protect you every time, everywhere, and government cannot do it. Good example of that, I just talked about the presidential assassination, one of the highest protected people on the planet, and they couldn't protect him. I mean, he was just that close from having his brains splattered all over that stage. Thank goodness he didn't. But that's the type of reasoning, which isn't reason at all, that the left wants to impose on society. And that's what they're teaching your kids. They're teaching your kids that 2 + 2 = 5. And when the kids who are saying, no, 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 2 + 2 = 4. Oh no, you're racist. You're transphobic. You're this, you're that, you're the other thing. Anytime they use their objectivity in school and academia, and in certain corporate places and government especially, if you use that objectivity, they're going to rip it out of you, because that's part of being an individual. I was just talking about the women who were abducted from parking lots, who were murdered later to be murdered. I wondered if they knew that the person that they were helping, or the person that was walking up to them, meant them harm. And if they did they act on it? Or did they say, oh no, let's be nice to everybody and be nice to Velvet von Ragnar, because, oh, he can't do anything. You could be very wrong. The most innocent, docile people can be some of the most dangerous people in the world. And especially if they have a lot of authority and high positions in government, they can be some of the very most dangerous people in the world. They can speak so eloquently, with such charm. They can charm the pants off of people. Let me tell you, we can't fall for that. And we got to teach our children not to fall for this BS. And so I hope I don't get kicked off. But once again, what the hell? So I'm going to change the subject now. I got to change the subject to something that's near to dear to me, because I am the Don Quixote of Coos County. I'm still tipping at windmills. And let's see, I got a report here that, where is that? Oh, I didn't get that story down, but there was a story that came out that they just put out the bids. There are 5 different companies who are considering bidding on these offshore call areas. And I got the new map here. It's not really a new map. It's a new map for this show. But if you can see that, the large area on the top of the map there with the dark blue in the corner, that's off of the coast of Coos Bay and Reedsport. That's going to be the Coos Bay call area. And down below, right across from Brookings, it shows you the call area, and it shows you the part that's going to be leased by the company. And they're going to be putting up 262 of those damn windmills. And we're talking windmills that are going to be the size of the Empire State Building. Each blade is going to be the length of a football field. And they're going to be whirling around in the ocean, killing birds and destroying mammals such as whales and porpoises and dolphins. And all of this is happening here in Coos County. And if we don't do something about it, they're just going to walk all over us. Well, lucky for us, we are our county and Curry County are the first counties in the nation to actually go to the voters and ask the voters, are you for or against these wind turbine projects that are being slated for the southern coast of Oregon? Are you for creating something that's nothing more than a boondoggle, a government boondoggle that you'll have to pay for, and all of the maintenance and upkeep and any damage that's done by these wind turbines? Guess who has to pay for that? We have to pay for that. And luckily, the county commissioners of Coos County, yeah, they get a couple of high fives, because they voted unanimously back in August. I think it was August 6th was the date. It was a Tuesday. It's either the 5th or the 6th back in August. They voted unanimously to put an advisory question on the ballot, asking the voters whether they were for or against these wind turbines. And of course, well, a lot of people, they were for it. And most of us were against it. And I think most of Coos County and most of Curry County is opposed to it. And there are, like I said, a few people who are for it. I don't know why. I don't know. Maybe they're thinking with their diversity, equity, and inclusion instead of being objective, because anyone who looks at these wind turbine projects, especially these offshore wind turbine projects, and can't look at it objectively and say this is a bad idea, well, I don't know. You're a freak. You're a real freak. You're a super freak.
Super freak, super freak.
Yep. Even Rick James knows you're a super freak. I should have played that for Velvet von Ragnar. That would have been a much better time to play that. But they did. They put it on the ballot, an advisory question. And we're the only county in the nation. We're the two only counties in the nation who've decided to go to the voters, and I think that's absolutely great. Here is the sign. This is the sign that we're going to be putting up everywhere. This is a vote yes on measure 6219. That's the measure number here in Coos County. And we're asking all of you to vote yes to stop the offshore wind turbines. And the reason that is because the question reads, do you want the Coos County commissioners to oppose the offshore wind turbine projects? And you have to say yes to really say no, you don't want them. Yes, we want to oppose the offshore wind turbines. And it's also the same type of question in Curry County, and their measure number is measure 8116. That's measure number 8116. And we're encouraging everyone to vote yes on these two ballot measures because we need a huge percentage of that vote. We'd like to see 70, 75. Boy, it'd be kick-ass if we can get 80% of the people of Coos and Curry County to say hell no and give a big middle finger to the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management. Wouldn't that be nice? That would be lovely. And I think if we did that, the 5 companies who are now bidding on those leases might think twice before placing a bid if they knew most of the people here in Coos and Curry don't want this crap. We don't want this crap in our oceans. We don't want this crap destroying any of our seafood, the seafood industry, seafood processors, the fishermen. We don't want those people destroyed. We don't want their livelihood destroyed. And you can find out more about the Oregonians against wind turbines at oawt.com. I highly recommend you go check out oawt.com. That's our website. We also got a Facebook page. The Facebook page is Facebook Oregonians Against Wind Turbines. And the campaign is the Breaking Wind campaign because, like I've said before, nobody knows about breaking wind like I do. I can break wind like nobody's business, and I'm going to break the wind industry here in Coos County, here in Curry County. Yes, we need to break the wind industry, the wind energy projects that are going on across this country because these are boondoggles. If they worked, I would support them, but they don't work. And so you can help out by finding out more, finding out when our rallies are. I think we're going to try to have a few events before the election, but remember, we only got like 59, 58 days before the election. So you can find out more at our website at oawt.com, or you can go to our Facebook page at Oregonians Against Wind Turbines. Another event that's happening soon is this event here, and this is the gathering of the Eagles event. I don't know what number event this is. I think this is like number 6, number 7. I was the speaker. They had me as a guest speaker at the first 2 gathering of Eagles. It was I was very proud to speak at there. The whole thing that they're going to be talking about at this gathering of Eagles this year, which is happening on Saturday, September 14th to 2024, 10 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. What they're going to be talking about is election integrity. And they've got 3 guests who are going to be at this event. Regaining Election Integrity is the title of the event. You got Phil Izon from Alaska Ranked Choice Voting Education Association discussing the drawbacks of ranked choice voting and how that does away with the constitutional option for in-person voting. And it also really makes it hard for mainstream candidates to be put into office. I mean, there's a good chance that people who win 3rd in the first round of the election could actually go on to be the winner in the second round of the election, the way the ranked choice voting is. And it's not right. I mean, what's wrong with the way we're voting? I mean, with the highest, the person who gets the highest amount of votes wins. That's the way it should be. That's the way it's always been, except for like when you vote for president. It's actually the Electoral College we vote to send people to the Electoral College to then vote for the presidential candidate. And in most cases, they have always voted for the people's choice. So we do have a little bit different system when it comes to voting for president. For most races, like the commissioner's race here in Coos County, it's based on whoever gets the highest percentage, and that's the way it should be. The next guest on this list is Joe Hoft. He's from the Gateway Pundit. Secretary of State witch hunt and censorship is his subject. Joe Hoft has a lawsuit in the Supreme Court against government censoring speech that is similar to an Oregon case. And I don't know which case that is, but if you go to the Gathering of Eagles event happening on the 14th, you'll find out more about this. And Jeff O'Donnell is the third guest, the Lone Raccoon. I don't know where the hell he gets that name, but the Lone Raccoon will show how Oregon elections were stolen in vote by mail data and how it is being manipulated. And that actually, all three of those sound very interesting, and I'd like to go and listen to that. And they also have another part of the Gathering of Eagles will be increase your effectiveness by attending specialized training on becoming a powerful social media influencer offered by Real PDX founder Angela Todd, and how to create a winning go get out the vote effort taught by Western Liberty Network founder Richard Burke. And both Angela Todd and Richard Burke have been on this show. They have been best guests of mine, and I'm going to get Angela Todd back on here real soon. I had her on, it was about a year ago when I still had the radio show. I had her on, and she does Real PDX. And if you go on YouTube and you check out Real PDX, she has a great show lineup, good stuff. I really dig Angela Todd. She's a friend of mine, and she does excellent work. And she is an actual social media influencer. You know, some people call me an influencer. I don't know if the couple of hundred views I get per show really qualifies me as an influencer. But I am a local activist. I will continue to be a local activist. I don't consider myself media. I'm certainly not mainstream. And I do like to promote events like the Gathering of Eagles because, well, that's what I do. And so I hope you all show up for that, because it should be a damn good time. One damn good time. Let's see. There's a work session. This is going back to local news here in Coos County. There is a work session talking about election integrity too. This is a work session is scheduled for the Coos County Board of Commissioners with Dr. Douglas Frank for Thursday, October 10th at 9:30 a.m. with an open window until noon in the Owen Large Conference Room here in Coquille to discuss problems he has identified with mail-in voting, voter registration, and election integrity and how we can fix it. I didn't write that sentence because, boy, that's a run-on sentence if I've ever seen one. But on October 10th, Dr. Douglas Frank is going to be here in person, and we're going to be at this work session. And I can guarantee you the leftists are going to show up because, you know, they're still mad because we didn't whore ourselves out to the Zuckerberg group. Thank God. Thank the commissioners. Thank the commissioners mostly. They made the vote. But thankfully, we're not whoring ourselves out to the Zuckerberg group, and the local vocal leftists are really ticked off about it. And they're going to show up at this event for Dr. Douglas Frank. They're going to show up in hordes. So please turn out Thursday, October 10th at 9:30 a.m. at the Owen Building. And I'll be advertising this. I will get this up on my website. I don't have it up yet, but I will have it up. And I encourage everyone to attend, because we got to shout down those leftists. Because it's funny when we're talking about election integrity and taking money from a Zuckerberg group, the leftists are all in. Yeah, we got to protect our elections. We got to save democracy, these loony leftists will say. But then when we want to have Dr. Douglas Frank here to talk about some of the data he has found, oh, no, we can't have that. That's a bunch of right-wing conspiracy there. So, you know, once again, I'm not saying that there's any corruption in the local office, but I do believe there's something wrong with the statewide elections here in Oregon, and especially in the voter registration. Otherwise, I don't think Judicial Watch would be suing the state of Oregon to clean our voter rolls. If our voter rolls were already clean, Judicial Watch wouldn't be suing us, but they are suing us. And much of the data that's been produced by Dr. Douglas Frank is based on election voter rolls. And so I think it's well worth listening to this guy. And if the leftists would have their expert come to a work session, the commissioners said they would already listen to the other person if there's anyone on the left who wants to counter Douglas Frank and not just call him a grifter and say that all of his information has been debunked, but instead put up an intelligent argument tackling some of the information and data that Douglas Frank is putting out. That would be perfectly fine. I would love to see that. Once again, objectively, I want to know who's right or wrong in the elections. I want fairer, freer elections, and I think we should find out more about that. But I did see a great meme. I don't know if you guys saw this. Don't let Trump cheat. We don't want Trump to cheat, so we're demanding voter ID and paper ballots. That's right. We're going to present this to the left. To the left, we're telling them we don't want Trump to cheat, so you should be demanding voter ID and paper ballots. Of course, I just don't think it's going to happen because, the leftists don't want a fair playing field. They want to be able to win anytime that they can, and they don't want free, fair elections. And unfortunately, that's probably the way it's going to be until we get more objectively thinking, reasonably minded people back into office. And that's not Biden. That's not Kamala Harris. No, those people, they're not objective. They are political animals who only think and want for their own needs. And that's not how we run things in America. And in fact, if we ran our country like the Constitution is written, we wouldn't have so many problems with government officials having too much authority. We would be able to question the authority and not worry about being punished. Today, not so much. But I want to thank you all for joining me. It's been an interesting show, at least for me, because I've been ranting with myself. That's right. I've been ranting with myself. Well, I got nothing to lose and nothing to prove. I'm a ranting with I won't harm you anymore by singing. I apologize. It's been late in the evening and sometimes I got to break out in song. I'm not sure if that was singing or dancing though. It's an interesting proposition, but I do want to thank my sponsors, 3H Tree Service. They're a heck of a guys. They've been a sponsor of mine for quite a while, even when I had the radio show, and they stuck with me afterwards. They're true loyal friends. I appreciate everything they do. And if you want to take out some of those trees that, let's face it, you got trees in your yard that they're a liability. They could catch fire. They're disease ridden. They have bugs. Well, I know it sounds a little like Antifa, but these are trees I'm talking about, damn it. Well, you can call them at 541-294-1800. Once again, that's 541-294-1800. And I will repeat that again, just for the heck of it. That's 541-294-1800. 3H Tree Service. Give Matt Holman a call. He can take care of you. And by the way, you want to see some evidence of their work, go to their Facebook page on 3H Tree Service and check out some of their videos. That's some badass stuff. Once again, my other sponsor is Tom and Gigs. Tim over at Tom and Gigs can take care of all your automotive needs. And by the way, they've got remote control cars. They've got Tannerite. Maybe you can put some Tannerite in a remote control car and take it for a ride. I don't know. Sounds pretty crazy to me. But what do I know? But seriously, you can go get all your automotive needs taken care of over at Tom and Gigs. They're over at 135 South Shoneman. That's 135 South Shoneman Street in Coos Bay. They're in the Empire neighborhood, right behind the car wash. Right across from our favorite Devereaux Center. Yeah, it's kind of catty corner from the Devereaux Center, but right behind the car wash, you'll find Tom and Gigs. They're always busy because they do good work, and I couldn't highly recommend them anymore because they're great people. Tim and Shanna do a hell of a job, and I appreciate what they do for me sponsoring this show. So if you like this show and you want to keep continuing to have it on the air, then you need to go to my sponsors and help them out, because the more you help them out, the more you patronize them, are patrons of theirs, you can help me out because they are my sponsors, and I appreciate them sponsoring me because, well, there's a few things you have to pay for, and this really helps me out so I can provide this program. I really enjoy it, and I really am thankful for my good friends Tim and Shanna over at Tom and Gig. So please, if you got some automotive needs, you can give them a call at 541-888-4660. Once again, it's 541-888-4660. Herbal Choices, another one of my great sponsors. If you have any herbal needs, you can take care of it. You need some edibles, you need a bong, you need something like that, go over to Herbal Choices. They have 5 stores. They have one in Bandon, they have one in Coos Bay, they have one in North Bend, and they have one in Reedsport. And all 4 of those stores are on Highway 101. So if you go south of Bandon and Highway 101, it's and you're heading south from Bandon, it's on the left-hand side. I don't know, probably about, I don't know if it's a mile. I wouldn't say it's a mile. It's not that far south of Bandon. Can't miss it because they have those beautiful Herbal Choices signs in front of their stores. Their parking lots are well lit. Their stores are well lit, and you always get service with a smile at Herbal Choices. I highly recommend them for your cannabis needs. And of course, Oregon Firearms Federation, great group of people over there. The only no compromise gun group in Oregon. Not like one of those phony gun groups. You know, those phony gun groups who tell you a news story that's a generalized news story that they picked up from AP and threw it on their newsletter, and they're trying to pretend that they're a gun group. No, not one of those phony gun groups. This is a real gun group. Oregon Firearms Federation at OregonFirearms.org. Go there and sign up for their alerts. Kevin Sterry, he is great at sending out the alerts. He doesn't send them out too much or too many times during the month. He'll send them out only when he needs to send them out. So you're not going to get a lot of stuff in your inbox file from Oregon's Firearms Federation. And they only ask for money when they truly need it. And usually they do need it to fight in a lot of these court cases that is coming up from all the legislation that's coming out of Salem. And that legislation, of course, is violating our Second Amendment rights. Well, the Oregon Firearms Federation is one of the only organizations that's fighting for it. They're not my sponsors, but I like to mention them. Bandon Gun Club. You can find out more at bandongunclub.org, or you can go to Tioga Sports Park, tiogasportspark.org, and find out when they're open. Tioga Sports Park is great because they have a rifle range. It's 100 yards long. And you can go sight in your telescope or get a little bit of practice with your rifle. And I recommend we all get a little bit of practice with our rifle. And I want to thank everyone for joining me. I really enjoyed this little rant that we had together. It's so special when I can get together on Friday night with my friends and just rant away. Yes, just rant away. I don't know who I'm going to have on the show on Monday. I had Craig Rucker scheduled. But come to find out, he had a schedule conflict, and Craig isn't going to be joining us. Craig Rucker is from CFACT, Climate Fact. They're the ones who wrote the movie, The Climate Scam. Very good stuff. He's putting out a lot of the truth. He's fighting against the windmills on the East Coast. I guess you can call him the Don Quixote of the East Coast. I'm the Don Quixote of the West Coast. Craig Rucker is the Don Quixote of the East Coast. So, and we're coming together. We're going to do a show. He's going to do an interview. He was in Oregon not too long ago, and I want to ask him about that. But I've heard that there's been some movement in their lawsuit against the corporations who are putting together the wind turbines on the East Coast. And that should be very interesting because it's going to be telling on where we are going. So hopefully I'll get Craig Rucker on the Monday following this Monday. So I don't know who the hell I'm going to have on Monday. Maybe I'll be ranting by myself again. Ranting with myself. Yeah, that's what I'll be doing. I don't know. That seems a little freaky, but what can I tell you? That's just the way we roll. And I'm a super freak too. I'm not quite like Velvet Von Ragnar, but I'm a super freak. What can I say? Super freak. Well, no, maybe not that freaky. I'm not Rick James freaky, So maybe I'm not super freak. Maybe I'm just an old guy who likes to think he's still young and hip. Maybe that's it. I don't know. But I do appreciate you joining me, and I hope you enjoyed the show. Just a little bit different things that are going on. I like to present to you. It's a local flavor, a national flavor, and what's happening in the state of Oregon. And so tell your friends, do subscribe. I highly recommend you subscribe because that also helps me out. You can catch me at the Rob Taylor Report. Please like, share, subscribe to YouTube, my YouTube channel, my Rumble channel, or on X. Not rated X, just X. That's it. Rob Taylor on X. And of course, you can find me at my website, the Rob Taylor Report. So tune in. I'd appreciate it. And until next time, folks, you know what I always say? Carry on, Coos County. Carry on.